The squad of young alien cadets huddled around the observation deck, their six eyes wide with excitement as they watched the holographic display of the blue-green planet below. This was their final mission before graduation from the Galactic Confederation Military Academy, and everyone felt the pressure to perform well. "Attention, cadets." Commander Tahoe's voice boomed across the deck. His tall, slender frame moved gracefully despite the extra weight of his ceremonial armor. The commander's skin shimmered with the pale purple hue that marked experienced officers. The cadets immediately stood at attention, their breathing apparatus whirring softly in the background. "This unregistered planet has been designated as Earth," Commander Tahoe explained, pointing at the hologram. "Our long-range scans have detected intelligent life using primitive technology. The Confederation War Council believes these creatures might be suitable for conscription." Cadet Ju stepped forward. Unlike her classmates, her skin was a deeper purple, almost matching the commander's. "Sir, what makes these creatures valuable to our war effort? They appear primitive." Commander Tahoe nodded approvingly at the question. "Good observation, Cadet Ju. While their technology is indeed basic, our initial readings show unusual biological traits. They adapt quickly and show remarkable endurance. The Galactic War has stretched our resources thin, and we need fresh soldiers." He tapped a control panel, and the hologram zoomed in to show cities, vehicles, and tiny moving dots that were the planet's inhabitants. "Your mission is simple. Capture a small group of specimens, evaluate their potential as warriors, and report your findings." Cadet Sunwoo raised a hand. "Commander, what if they resist?" Commander Tahoe made the clicking sound that passed for laughter among their species. "These creatures have barely mastered basic spaceflight. They pose no threat to cadets trained in our academy. However, use non-lethal methods when possible. Dead specimens provide limited data." After the briefing, the cadets gathered in the tactical room. Ju, now appointed mission leader, outlined their plan. "We will target a small water vessel in this isolated region," she said, pointing to an ocean area. "According to our data, it's a research ship with minimal defenses. We'll use the stealth shuttle, capture 5 specimens, and return without alerting their authorities." Cadet Mina, the team's technical specialist, checked her equipment nervously. "I've loaded translators with their most common languages, though they won't work perfectly at first." Cadet Dohyun, the biggest of the group, flexed his upper arms. "I studied their physical capabilities. They're weaker than us, with only 2 arms and poor night vision. This should be simple." Ju wasn't convinced. "Remember, Commander Tahoe warned us about their adaptability. Don't underestimate them." The shuttle departed that night, its cloaking technology making it invisible to Earth's primitive radar systems. They hovered over the ocean, watching the small research vessel below. Only 5 humans were visible on deck, exactly as planned. "Perfect," Ju whispered. "Mina, disable their communications. Dohyun and Hyunwoo, prepare the capture nets. Sunwoo, keep the shuttle steady." The team moved with practiced precision. The shuttle descended silently until it hovered just 20 meters above the human vessel. Mina activated an electromagnetic pulse device that knocked out all electronics on the boat. "Communications disabled," she reported. "They're isolated now." Ju gave the signal, and Dohyun launched the capture nets. The silvery mesh expanded as it fell, covering most of the boat's deck. The humans below shouted in confusion, their voices barely audible through the shuttle's hull. "Targets secured," Dohyun announced proudly. "Let's collect them." That's when everything went wrong. Instead of cowering in fear as expected, the humans began fighting back. One grabbed a knife and started cutting through the advanced mesh, something that should have been impossible with their primitive tools. Another threw some kind of liquid that smoked when it hit the shuttle's underside. "They're damaging our hull," Sunwoo shouted, struggling to keep the shuttle stable. Ju watched in shock as a human pointed something at them, a primitive projectile weapon. Loud bangs echoed as small metal objects pinged against the shuttle's exterior. "Impossible," Mina whispered. How did they detect us through the cloaking field? Doesn't matter. Ju snapped. Do-yun, deploy the sleep gas. We need to end this quickly. Do-yun released the cloudy substance over the boat. The humans covered their faces, but one reached into a container and pulled out what appeared to be breathing masks, distributing them to the others. They're adapting to our tactics. Ju couldn't hide her amazement. Use the tractor beam. We'll grab one of them for study. The beam activated, pulling one human upward. The others tried to hold onto their companion, but eventually lost their grip. As the human rose toward the shuttle, they fought fiercely, swinging a metal tool that sparked when it struck the beam projector. Get us out of here, Ju ordered. We have one specimen. That's enough for initial study. As the shuttle rose higher, the remaining humans continued firing their weapons. One lucky shot hit a vulnerable spot on the shuttle's underside, causing warning lights to flash across the control panel. Minor hull breach. Sunwoo reported, his voice shaking. Sealing now. The shuttle accelerated upward, leaving the boat behind. Inside the holding cell, their captured human continued fighting against the restraints, showing strength that surprised the cadets. When they returned to the main ship, Commander Taeho was waiting in the docking bay. His expression darkened when he saw the damaged shuttle and the single, struggling human captive. What happened? He demanded. Jiwoo stepped forward. Her confidence diminished. Commander, we underestimated them. They fought with unexpected ferocity and intelligence. They adapted to our nets, detected us through cloaking, and even damaged our shuttle. The commander walked slowly around the restrained human, who glared back with undiminished defiance, despite being surrounded by aliens. Interesting. One specimen will have to be enough. Sir, Do-yun interjected, these creatures are more dangerous than we anticipated. They used primitive tools in creative ways and coordinated their defense without communication devices. Commander Taeho nodded slowly. This confirms some of our intelligence reports. These humans have a history of warfare that spans their entire recorded history. They are constantly fighting, either against nature or each other. The human captive suddenly spoke, the words unintelligible until Minna adjusted her translator. Military veterans, you picked the wrong boat, whatever you are. The cadets exchanged nervous glances as the translator processed this information. It seems, Commander Taeho said quietly, that of all the human vessels on that vast ocean, you managed to select one crewed by trained warriors. A costly coincidence, but perhaps a valuable lesson. As they led the human to the examination room, Jiwoo couldn't help but feel a new emotion, respect mixed with concern. If 5 humans with primitive technology could damage their advanced shuttle and fight back so effectively, what would happen if the Confederation faced all of humanity? Commander Taeho seemed to read her thoughts. Cadet Jiwoo, your first contact mission may have yielded more valuable data than anticipated. These humans appear to possess the warrior spirit the Confederation seeks, but also a dangerous unpredictability. Your evaluation of their suitability for conscription just became much more important. The human captive watched them with calculating eyes, as if already planning their next move. Jiwoo realized this mission had suddenly become much more complicated than a simple training exercise. The bright lights of the examination room made Hyun squint as the alien cadets secured him to the medical table. Despite the strange situation, he maintained a calm expression, carefully observing everything around him. Subject appears to be male, approximately 30 Earth years in age. Cadet Minna noted, speaking into a small recording device attached to her uniform. Her 4-fingered hands moved gracefully over a control panel, activating various scanning equipment. Hyun watched her movements with intense focus, memorizing the pattern of buttons she pressed. The aliens didn't seem to notice his attention to detail. Begin standard biological assessment, ordered Jiwoo, who stood by the doorway. Commander Taeho wants a complete report within 6 hours. Minna nodded and approached their captive. I will start with basic measurements and fluid samples. when she picked up a thin metallic instrument that glowed at one end. Hyun spoke for the first time since being brought aboard. "What is that for?" The aliens seemed surprised to hear him speak. Minna adjusted something on her collar, likely a translation device, before responding. "This will take a small tissue sample. It should cause minimal discomfort." To her surprise, Hyun nodded calmly. "Go ahead." As Minna pressed the device against his arm, Hyun didn't flinch. A small cylinder of skin and muscle tissue was extracted, but he showed no sign of pain. "Interesting," Minna murmured. "Most species require pain suppressants for this procedure." Hyun shrugged as much as his restraints allowed. "I've had worse." Over the next several hours, Minna conducted a series of increasingly invasive tests. She took blood samples, measured his vital signs, and even performed a minor surgical procedure on his arm to test healing response. Through it all, Hyun remained stoic, asking occasional questions about the equipment being used. "Your pain tolerance is remarkable," Minna commented as she sealed a wound on his forearm. "How is this possible?" "Military training," Hyun replied simply. "Pain is just information. You can choose what to do with it." Ju-woo, who had been observing silently, stepped forward. "What branch of military?" "Special Forces, Water Operations Specialist." This information was immediately relayed to Commander Taho, who arrived shortly afterward to observe the examination personally. "The subject's physical resilience exceeds our predictions," Minna reported to her commander. "His body can withstand extreme temperatures, oxygen deprivation, and physical trauma that would be fatal to most Confederation species." Commander Taho circled the examination table, studying Hyun with all 6 of his eyes. "What about psychological resilience?" "We'll begin those tests now," Minna replied, adjusting her equipment. For the next phase, the aliens attached sensors to Hyun's head and projected a series of disturbing images designed to provoke fear responses. Battle scenes, dangerous predators, and situations of extreme danger flashed before his eyes. His vital signs remained steady. "Minimal stress response," Minna noted with surprise. "Subject appears to be analyzing the threats rather than reacting emotionally." Next came sleep deprivation. They kept Hyun awake for 3 days straight, using uncomfortable noise and light patterns. While other species typically broke down mentally after 1 day, Hyun remained coherent and alert. "How are you maintaining your focus?" Ju asked on the 3rd day, genuinely curious. Hyun's eyes were bloodshot, but his voice remained steady. "Part of my training was surviving prisoner of war scenarios. This is actually quite comfortable by comparison." Instead of appearing intimidated, Hyun began asking more questions about the ship and its technology. During mealtimes, he inquired about the propulsion systems. While being moved between testing areas, he studied the corridor layouts. During psychological evaluations, he asked about the hierarchy of the Confederation. On the 4th day, Commander Taho called a meeting with his cadets in a separate room. "The human's behavior concerns me," he stated flatly. "He shows more interest in our technology than fear of his situation." Cadet Do-hyun nodded in agreement. "I've noticed him studying our security protocols during transfers. He asked me about the door locking mechanisms yesterday, claiming simple curiosity." "Their species evolved as predators," Minna added, reviewing her notes. "From what I've gathered, they maintain those instincts even in their modern society. They're constantly assessing threats and opportunities." Ju frowned. "Commander, during the physical tests, I noticed something else. The human's bone structure shows evidence of multiple previous breaks that have healed. When I asked about this, he mentioned something called combat training, where they deliberately hurt each other to prepare for real fighting." Commander Taho's skin paled slightly. "They intentionally injure themselves for practice. That explains their pain tolerance." "There's more," Minna said. "I've been analyzing their historical data from the ship's records. Humans have been at war continuously throughout their history, not just against other species. They primarily fight each other. Their technological development accelerates dramatically during wartime. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. A species that thrives on conflict, Commander Tahoe mused. No wonder the War Council is interested in them. Back in the examination room, Hyun was subjected to a simulation test. The aliens had created a virtual reality program designed to measure problem-solving abilities under stress. They expected it would take days for him to solve the complex puzzles while navigating dangers. Hyun completed it in 4 hours. How did you solve the final sequence so quickly? Minna asked afterward, reviewing the results with disbelief. Hyun gave a tired smile. The pattern was similar to encryption systems we use. I recognized the logic. That evening, as Hyun was returned to his holding cell, he stumbled slightly. Do-hyun caught his arm to steady him. "Thank you," Hyun said, and then added innocently, "How many guards are typically stationed in this section during sleep cycles?" Do-hyun nearly answered before catching himself. "That information is not relevant to you." Hyun nodded amicably, just making conversation. Later that night, Commander Tahoe reviewed the day's findings with growing concern. The humans' casual questions, his careful observation of their technology, his extraordinary resilience, all pointed to a dangerous conclusion. "He's planning something," Tahoe muttered to himself. He pulled up the surveillance feed from Hyun's cell. The human appeared to be sleeping peacefully, but Tahoe noticed something odd. Despite the exhaustion from days of testing, Hyun's fingers occasionally twitched in specific patterns, as if practicing movement sequences. Commander Tahoe immediately called Ju-woo on the communication system. "Double the guards on the human cell tonight," he ordered, "and restrict his movement path to examination rooms only. No more passages near critical systems." "Do you think he's dangerous?" Ju-woo asked. Commander Tahoe watched the sleeping human on the screen. "Not individually. But I'm beginning to understand why the War Council is interested in their species. If all humans are like this one, they would make formidable warriors, but controlling them might prove impossible." He switched off the screen and added quietly, "What worries me most is not what we're learning about him, but what he's learning about us." In his cell, Hyun opened one eye slightly, watching the subtle shift in the security camera's position that told him someone had been observing him. He closed his eye again and continued his silent mental mapping of the ship's layout, planning his next move. The aliens were right to be concerned, but they still had no idea what humans were truly capable of when cornered. The ship's alarm blared loudly as Commander Tahoe rushed toward the command center. Red warning lights flashed along the corridors, bathing everything in an eerie glow. "Status report," he demanded as he entered the bridge. Cadet Ju-woo looked up from the control panel, her face tense. "Sir, the human has escaped containment. It happened during the routine system check." "How?" Commander Tahoe's voice was sharp with disbelief. "That cell has triple security measures. He exploited the brief power fluctuation during the simulation drill," explained Cadet Mina, who was frantically typing commands into her station. "When we cycle the ship's systems, there's a 3-second delay before backup protocols activate. Somehow, he knew exactly when it would happen." Commander Tahoe's skin darkened with anger. "He's been watching our routines. Where is he now?" "We're not sure," admitted Ju-woo. "He disabled the tracking sensors in Section 4. We've lost visual contact." On Deck 3, Hyun moved silently through the dimly lit corridor. After 7 days in captivity, he had memorized the ship's daily operations schedule and identified the perfect moment to act. The brief power reset during simulation drills was his window of opportunity. He pressed himself against a wall as 2 security drones buzzed past. Their scanning beams swept the hallway, missing him by centimeters. Once they passed, Hyun continued toward his first objective, the communication center. Inside a nearby equipment room, he quickly assembled what he needed. The aliens had underestimated human ingenuity. A broken pipe became a club. Cleaning solution and medical alcohol made a flammable mixture. A stolen data chip became his key to accessing restricted systems. "All cadets, full alert status," Commander Taho's voice echoed through the ship's announcement system. The human specimen is considered dangerous. Use non-lethal methods to recapture. Work in teams of 3 only. In the medical bay, Cadet Minna was gathering tranquilizer devices when she heard a noise from the supply closet. She approached cautiously, signaling 2 other cadets to flank the door. "Human, we know you're in there," she called out. "Surrender now, and you won't be harmed." The door slid open, revealing an empty closet. The cadets moved forward to investigate, just as Hyun dropped from a ceiling panel behind them. Before they could react, he swung his improvised club, striking the nerve cluster on the nearest cadet's back. The alien dropped immediately. "He's here," shouted the second cadet, reaching for his stun weapon. Too late. Hyun threw the bottle of flammable mixture at the medical cabinet. It shattered, creating a wall of flames that separated him from the remaining cadets. In the confusion, he grabbed Mina's access card and disappeared through a side door. Emergency in the medical bay. Minna reported over her communicator, helping her injured teammate. The human is heading toward Section 6. Commander Taho watched the chaos unfold on multiple screens. The human was systematically working through the ship, creating distractions and disabling systems. 3 cadets were already injured, though not seriously. "He's not trying to kill anyone," observed Juwoo with surprise. "He could have, but he's only incapacitating our personnel." "That doesn't make him less dangerous," replied Commander Tayo. "He's heading for the communications array. Lock down all access points." But Hyun was already 2 steps ahead. Using Mina's access card, he entered a maintenance tunnel that bypassed the main corridors. The narrow passage was designed for the ship's small repair drones, forcing him to crawl on his stomach. He emerged in a small junction box room directly below the communications center. Looking up, he spotted an access panel in the ceiling. Through it, he could hear the frantic voices of aliens trying to track his movements. With careful precision, he removed a small device he had hidden in his shoe. A simple metal pin taken from the medical equipment used during his examinations. On the bridge, alarms suddenly blared as a new crisis emerged. "Sir, the environmental systems are failing in sections 3 through 7, reported a cadet. "How is that possible?" demanded Commander Tayo. "Someone has manually overridden the oxygen recyclers," explained the cadet. "The safety protocols are shutting down affected areas." Commander Taho realized the strategy immediately. "He's clearing a path to the communications center. Redirect all available personnel there immediately." But the damage was done. With the corridors evacuated due to the environmental alert, Hyun faced no resistance as he finally reached the communications room. The 2 cadets inside were struggling to breathe as the oxygen levels dropped. They retreated when the emergency protocols activated, sealing the room but leaving Hyun inside. "He's locked himself in the communications center," reported Juwoo, attempting to override the door controls. Commander Taho slammed his fist on the console. What is he trying to do? Inside the communications room, Hyun worked quickly. The alien technology was advanced, but followed logical patterns he had observed during his captivity. He located the long-range transmission system and began configuring it to send a simple message. On the bridge, Cadet Mina suddenly noticed something alarming. "Commander, he's accessing our transmission array. He's sending a signal toward Earth." "Block it," ordered Commander Tayo. "I can't," replied Mina. "He's rerouted the controls through multiple systems. It would take too long to untangle them." Hyun smiled as the transmission completed. The message was brief but contained everything Earth needed: coordinates, basic information about the alien vessel, and a warning about their interest in human conscription. He had no way of knowing if the signal would reach Earth or if anyone would understand it, but he had to try. His victory was short-lived. The door to the communications room suddenly melted as a cutting tool burned through from the outside. Cadet Doyun, the largest and strongest of the aliens, burst through with 4 security drones. Hyun grabbed a piece of equipment and swung it at the first drone, destroying it instantly. He dodged Do-hyun's attempt to grab him and slid across the console, hitting emergency buttons as he went. Lights flickered throughout the ship as power rerouted in unexpected ways. "The main engines are shutting down," someone shouted over the communication system. Hyun had triggered a cascading failure. Systems throughout the ship began malfunctioning as safety protocols initiated emergency shutdowns. In the resulting confusion, he nearly made it past Do-hyun, but the alien cadet finally managed to tackle him. The struggle was brief but intense. Despite his smaller size, Hyun fought with unexpected strength and technique. He struck pressure points that made Do-hyun's limbs temporarily numb, a vulnerability he had observed during his medical examinations. Just as Hyun broke free, a stun blast from Commander Taho's weapon hit him squarely in the back. He collapsed to the floor, conscious but unable to move. Commander Taho stood over him, breathing heavily. "Impressive," he admitted, "but futile." Hyun managed a weak smile. "The message is sent. Earth knows you're here now." Later, with Hyun securely contained in a new cell with additional restraints, the cadets gathered to assess the damage. 3 cadets required medical treatment for injuries sustained during the capture. Multiple ship systems needed repairs. The transmission to Earth could not be confirmed as blocked. How did one primitive being cause so much chaos? Wondered Cadet Sunwoo, nursing a bruised arm. "He watched us," Minna explained. "While we were studying him, he was studying us. He identified weaknesses in our routines, our technology, even our physical biology." Commander Taho looked troubled. "If one human can do this much damage, imagine what would happen if we tried to conscript thousands of them. They wouldn't be soldiers. They'd be a rebellion waiting to happen." "Should we terminate the specimen?" asked Do-hyun, still rubbing feeling back into his arm where Hyun had struck him. "No," replied Commander Taho firmly. "We need to complete our evaluation. The War Council must understand exactly what they're dealing with." In his new cell, surrounded by enhanced security measures, Hyun lay on his back staring at the ceiling. Despite his recapture, he felt a sense of accomplishment. The message was away. And more importantly, he had gathered critical intelligence about alien technology, tactics, and biology. When he returned to Earth, that information would be invaluable. The aliens thought they were the ones doing the evaluation, but in reality, Hyun had been assessing them all along, and what he had learned convinced him that humans could match these aliens, despite their advanced technology. He closed his eyes and began planning his next move. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Confederation High Command stretched impossibly wide, with soaring ceilings that disappeared into darkness high above. Commander Taho led his cadets through the central walkway, their footsteps echoing in the massive space. The junior officers kept their posture perfect despite their nervousness. This was their first presentation to the War Council. 5 imposing figures sat at the raised platform ahead. These were the senior commanders who directed the Confederation's military strategy across 1,000 star systems. Their species varied, representing the founding races of the Interstellar Alliance, but they all shared the cold, calculating gaze of those who commanded fleets and decided the fates of entire planets. Squadron 7 Delta, presenting findings on species 3279, designation human, announced Commander Tayo, saluting crisply. The central figure, Admiral Kuro, nodded slightly. His scaled skin gleamed under the harsh lights. "Proceed with your assessment, Commander. The Council has reviewed your preliminary reports with interest." Behind the cadets, a holographic display activated, showing rotating images of Earth and human physiology. Cadet Juwoo stepped forward first, her voice steady despite her anxiety. "Honorable Council, our mission to evaluate humans as potential conscripts has yielded unexpected results. While humans possess many qualities desirable in soldiers, we have serious concerns about their suitability for controlled military service." Admiral Kuro's eyes narrowed. "Elaborate." Cadet Minna activated her data pad, projecting medical scans of Hyun. Physically, humans demonstrate remarkable resilience. They can function with major injuries that would incapacitate most Confederation species. Their biology allows them to survive extreme temperature variations, radiation exposure, and toxic environments with minimal protection. Advantageous traits for frontline soldiers, commented another council member, a female with crystalline features. Yes, General Sora, agreed Mina. But there are complications. Humans heal quickly but retain full memory of pain experiences. This creates soldiers who become increasingly dangerous with each injury survived. Cadet Do-Yun stepped forward next, his imposing frame drawing attention. Most concerning is their psychological profile. Unlike civilized species that evolved past tribal warfare, humans maintained aggressive competition throughout their development. Their planet currently has over 200 separate military forces, constantly training for conflict with each other. He activated a series of images showing Earth's military history, ancient wars, modern conflicts, training exercises. Their technological advancement accelerates dramatically during wartime. They developed from primitive flight to orbital capabilities in less than 1 century, driven primarily by military competition. Admiral Kuro leaned forward, suddenly more interested. Are you suggesting these creatures could advance quickly enough to threaten Confederation technology? Commander Tejo intervened smoothly. With respect, Admiral, that is precisely our concern. Our specimen demonstrated this tendency during captivity. The hologram shifted to security footage, showing Hyun's escape attempt. The council watched silently as the lone human disabled systems created improvised weapons and injured several cadets before being recaptured. This single human, with no knowledge of our technology, was able to understand and exploit our systems within days of exposure, Cadet Juu explained. He adapted our own equipment against us and nearly succeeded in sending a warning to his planet. General Sora's crystalline features sparkled with irritation. One clever primitive is hardly evidence of species-wide capability. We believe the same, General, replied Commander Tayo. But our subsequent research into human history reveals this adaptability is common among them. They call it reverse engineering and have built entire military strategies around capturing and repurposing enemy technology. The smallest council member, a being of swirling gas contained in a mechanical suit, spoke for the first time. What of loyalty? Many species fight well once properly conditioned. Cadet Sunwoo, who had remained silent until now, answered. Grand Admiral Yuna, our findings suggest humans cannot be reliably conditioned. Their psychological assessments show unusual resistance to standard compliance techniques. They maintain independent thought even under extreme duress. They're also deceptive by nature, added Do-Yun. Our specimen pretended cooperation while constantly seeking weaknesses in our security. This behavior isn't considered dishonorable in their culture. They expect and train for captivity scenarios. Admiral Kuro stood suddenly, silencing the presentation. He walked slowly around the holographic display, studying the images of Earth. Let me understand your recommendation clearly, he said coldly. You believe these humans possess desirable combat abilities, remarkable adaptability, and resistance to control measures. And based on your experience with a single specimen, you suggest we abandon conscription plans entirely. Commander Tejo stood firm. Yes, Admiral. Our assessment concludes that humans would likely rebel against Confederation control. Worse, they might successfully reverse engineer our technology and become a significant threat. A tense silence filled the chamber. Finally, Admiral Kuro laughed, a harsh, unpleasant sound. Commander Tahoe, while I appreciate thorough analysis, your cadets have allowed one resourceful primitive to color their entire assessment. This council has overseen the successful conscription of dozens of species, many initially resistant. The holographic display shifted to show a massive Confederation fleet in orbit around a distant planet. The 7th Fleet is already positioned near Earth's solar system, conducting long-range observations, explained Admiral Kuro. They report minimal orbital defenses and primitive weapons technology. A simple show of force typically ensures compliance from such worlds. Cadet Juwu stepped forward again, despite protocol. Admiral, with respect, standard intimidation tactics may backfire with humans. Their historical records show they often unite against external threats, despite internal conflicts. Indeed, added Doyan, they have cultural myths specifically celebrating resistance against technologically superior invaders. They would view conscription as enslavement, not an honor. Admiral Kuro's expression hardened. Your concerns are noted, cadets. However, the War Council has already authorized a small-scale conscription operation to begin. The 7th Fleet will extract 500 specimens from isolated military installations for initial training and evaluation. Commander Tejo tried one final appeal. Admiral, request permission to include our human specimens' full behavioral record in the operation briefing. The extraction teams should at least be warned about potential resistance tactics. Denied, replied Admiral Kuro curtly. Your specimen was aware of his captivity. The initial extraction will be conducted under stealth protocols with subjects unaware until already aboard our vessels. General Sora added. Furthermore, this council finds your assessment overly cautious, likely due to the inexperience of your cadet squadron. A more thorough evaluation by seasoned officers will follow the initial conscription. The dismissal was clear. The cadets exchanged worried glances as Commander Tejo saluted stiffly. Understood, Admiral. Squadron 7 Delta stands ready to assist the operation if needed. As they were escorted from the chamber, the War Council continued discussing extraction strategies, already moving past the cadets' concerns. In the corridor outside, Cadet Minna whispered, "They're making a terrible mistake. They didn't even consider our recommendation for remote observation first." Doyan nodded grimly. "They see only primitive weapons and ignore everything else, just like they ignored how quickly Hyun adapted to our technology." Commander Tejo silenced them with a sharp gesture as they passed other officers. Once aboard their transport vessel, he finally spoke his mind. "The Council has made their decision, but our duty isn't complete. We will prepare a complete contingency report with detailed observations of human capabilities and recommended countermeasures. When, not if, this conscription attempt encounters resistance, that information will be critical." "Do you think they'll even read it?" asked Juwu. "They will," replied Commander Tejo grimly, "after the first extraction teams fail." Back in the detention area of their ship, Hyun sat quietly in his reinforced cell. Despite the additional restraints and security measures, he appeared strangely calm, almost satisfied. He had overheard enough conversations between the cadets to understand that his message had caused serious debate. What the aliens didn't realize was that humans have been imagining first contact scenarios for centuries. They had made movies, written books, and developed theoretical response plans for exactly this situation. Earth wouldn't be caught completely by surprise. As the cadet ship prepared to depart, Hyun smiled slightly to himself. The real test was just beginning, and he had done everything he could to prepare his planet. Whether it would be enough remained to be seen. In the vast war room of Confederation High Command, Admiral Kuro finalized the conscription orders, completely unaware that he had just authorized what would soon be remembered as the most disastrous first contact in galactic history. Officer Juwu stood silently on the observation deck, staring at the tactical display in disbelief. The massive hologram showed Earth's solar system, with red warning indicators flashing around nearly every Confederation vessel. The conscription fleet that had departed with such confidence 3 months ago now appeared as scattered debris fields in Earth orbit. "It can't be," whispered Minna, who had joined her at the viewport. The 7th Fleet had 4 battle cruisers and 20 support vessels. Commander Tayo, recently promoted after their graduation, entered the observation deck with a grim expression. "The situation is worse than it appears. High Command has lost contact with Admiral Kuro's command ship. Preliminary reports suggest it was boarded." Boarded. Doyen's voice rose in shock. How could humans even reach a command ship in orbit? Tahoe activated a recording on the main screen. The grainy footage showed Earth military vessels, clearly modified with alien technology, surrounding a Confederation cruiser. Small craft launched from the Earth ships, attaching to the cruiser's hull and cutting through using what appeared to be repurposed Confederation weapons. "They've adapted our own technology against us," Tahoe explained, "just as we warned." The observation deck fell silent as the implications sank in. Their small cadet squadron, now junior officers, had predicted this outcome, but seeing it unfold was still shocking. "How did it go so wrong so quickly?" asked Mina. Tahoe sighed heavily. The conscription operation began as planned. Extraction teams targeted isolated military bases on the night side of the planet. The first 3 teams succeeded in capturing approximately 50 human soldiers. He paused, bringing up another video. Then this happened. The footage showed panicked Confederation soldiers retreating to their transport ships, pursued by human forces using a mix of primitive projectile weapons and what appeared to be modified alien technology. The 4th extraction team was detected. Instead of surrendering, the humans activated some kind of planetary defense network. Suddenly, every major nation on Earth knew about the abductions simultaneously. Do-Yun shook his head in disbelief. That shouldn't be possible. Their global communications were primitive. "Not anymore," replied Tahoe grimly. "Remember Hyun's transmission? Earth received it. They'd been preparing for our arrival for months." The tactical display updated, showing a new alert. The rescue vessel they were currently aboard had been ordered to retrieve survivors from the damaged fleet. "We're going in?" asked Juwoo, unable to hide her concern. "Direct orders from the remaining high command," confirmed Tahoe. "We're to assess the situation and extract any Confederation personnel still alive." As their vessel approached Earth's orbit, they witnessed the full extent of the disaster. Confederation ships drifted in scattered formations, many showing significant damage. Earth's military forces had established defensive positions using a combination of their own satellites and captured alien technology. Most concerning were the modified human vessels now patrolling between Earth and its moon. They bore clear signs of Confederation technology grafted onto Earth designs, impossible adaptations completed in mere months. "How did they reverse engineer our systems so quickly?" wondered Mina aloud as she scanned the hybrid vessels. "Remember what happened on our ship," replied Juwoo. "Hyun learned our basic systems in days just by watching. Give their engineers actual components to study." Their vessel received a transmission from one of the few intact Confederation ships. The face that appeared on screen was that of a junior commander, his uniform torn, and his expression haunted. "Identify yourselves," he demanded weakly. Commander Tahoe stepped forward. "Rescue vessel Starlight, sent by High Command to extract survivors." The junior commander laughed bitterly. "There's no rescue possible. The humans have control of the orbital perimeter. They've captured 3 of our cruisers intact and are systematically disassembling them." "What about Admiral Kuro?" asked Tahoe. "Captured, along with most of the command staff." The junior commander looked over his shoulder nervously. "The humans didn't just fight back. They were ready for us. They had countermeasures prepared, as if they knew our tactics." Tahoe exchanged meaningful glances with his team. They had warned of exactly this possibility. "We need to report this to High Command immediately," Tahoe decided. "Prepare for emergency jump." As their vessel backed away from Earth orbit, they detected multiple human ships moving to intercept. Unlike the earlier engagements, these vessels moved with precision, clearly operated by crews now familiar with space combat. "They're using our own pursuit formations," observed Do-Yun with grudging respect. "Maximum acceleration," ordered Tahoe. "We need to reach the jump point before they can lock weapons." Their vessel shuddered as it pushed beyond safe speed parameters. The human ships followed, gaining steadily, until a sudden burst from their modified engines closed the gap with alarming speed. "They've improved the efficiency of our propulsion systems," Mina noted in disbelief. That should be impossible without years of study. Just as the human vessels came within weapons range, their rescue ship reached the jump point and vanished into faster-than-light travel, narrowly escaping capture. 3 days later, in the temporary headquarters of the Galactic Confederation High Command, the surviving Leadership Council listened in stunned silence as Commander Tejo presented his report. The human counterattack was coordinated and effective, he explained, displaying tactical data on the main screen. They not only repelled our extraction teams, but managed to capture significant Confederation technology intact. Their adaptation rate exceeds anything we've previously encountered. General Sora, one of the few council members who had opposed the conscription operation, spoke grimly. How much technology did we lose? 3 battle cruisers with full weapon systems, 5 support vessels with advanced medical and propulsion technology. And Tahoe hesitated before continuing. Admiral Kuro's command ship containing strategic databases for this entire quadrant. The council chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. Silence, commanded General Sora. Commander Tahoe, your Cadet squadron, now officers, warned of this possibility. What do you recommend? Tahoe straightened his posture. Based on our direct observations and analysis, we believe that standard military engagement with humans is inadvisable. Their threat level should be classified as maximum. He transferred a document to the Council's displays. My team has drafted what we call the Hyun Protocol, named after the human specimen who first demonstrated these concerning traits. It recommends immediate quarantine of the entire Sol system and classification of humans as an extinction-level threat to galactic stability. Extinction level, repeated one council member incredulously. Surely that's an exaggeration. Officer Juwu stepped forward. With respect, it is not. Our calculations show that at their current rate of technological adaptation, humans could develop interstellar capabilities within 5 years. Given their demonstrated willingness to use captured technology aggressively, this poses an unprecedented risk. The council debated briefly before General Sora called for a vote. The decision was unanimous. Earth would be quarantined immediately. As the new protocol was implemented, automated beacons were deployed around the Sol system, broadcasting warnings to all Confederation vessels. Danger. Prohibited zone. Do not approach. In a private meeting afterward, General Sora spoke candidly with Tahoe's team. Your assessment was correct from the beginning, she admitted. We should have heeded your warnings. The humans might have been valuable allies if approached differently, suggested Mina. Their adaptability could have been an asset. General Sora shook her head. Perhaps, but that opportunity is lost. Now we must ensure the quarantine holds. Your team will oversee long-range monitoring of Earth. If the humans develop interstellar travel, they will, interrupted Do-Hyun with certainty. It's just a matter of time. Then we must be prepared, concluded General Sora. The galaxy has never faced a species like this before. As the meeting ended, Juwu reviewed the final wording of the warning that would be attached to all galactic records regarding Earth. Species, human. Classification. Extinction-level threat. Warning. This species demonstrates unprecedented adaptive capabilities, resistance to standard control measures, and aggressive response to perceived threats. All contact prohibited by order of Galactic High Command. Approaching the Sol system is punishable by immediate termination of command privileges. Beneath this official warning, a smaller notation was added. Note to future commanders. They were not ready for war. We were not ready for them.